Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
No.
I'm really excited for this one. We're going to be looking at a separate piece. I think this is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I agree. A Separate Peace is a really fascinating book. And
Okay.
it's set during World War II.
Right, but it's not your typical war story.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about battles and bombs and all that. It's more about the psychological and emotional impact of war.
That's right. It takes place at this prep school called Devon School.
Yeah, Devon School. Kind of a, picturesque New England setting.
And it focuses on these young men who are on the cusp of adulthood.
Right. They're just trying to figure out who they are and what they believe in, and then suddenly this war comes along and it kind of throws everything into question.
Yeah. And it's interesting because they're not actually fighting in the war yet. They're still at school, but the war is very much present in their lives. It's looming over them.
It's like this shadow hanging over everything.
Right. And so the book explores how these young men deal with the pressure of the war, the fear, the uncertainty.
And also how they deal with each other,
Yeah.
you know? Their friendships, their rivalries, their struggles to understand themselves and each other.
Exactly. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of this very idyllic setting, which makes it even more, I don't know, poignant.
Yeah, because it's like you have this contrast between the beauty and innocence of the school and the harsh reality of the war.
Right. And the book really captures that contrast, the way it describes the campus, the buildings, the surrounding countryside. It's almost like a paradise.
But then you have these hints of the war creeping in.
Yeah, like the way the school starts to change,
Yeah.
they start to have military drills and the students start talking about enlisting.
And there's this one scene where they see these paratroopers training.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful image because it just shows how the war is encroaching on their little world.
So we have this setting, Devon School, this kind of idyllic world. But war is starting to make its presence known, and we have this group of young men trying to figure out life and how they fit into this world that seems to be changing so quickly. So where do we go from here?
Well, one of the key things the novel explores is this idea of a generational divide.
Yeah.
The older generation, the one that fought in World War I, they have a very specific view of war and heroism.
Right. It's all about
Yeah.
about duty and sacrifice.
And honor.
But the younger generation, they're not so sure. They're more skeptical.
Yeah, they've seen the cost of war, and they're not as eager to jump in.
Which makes sense, right? I mean, they're the ones who are going to have to fight this war. So of course they're going to have a different perspective.
And this generational divide is really embodied in the relationship between Brinker Hadley and his father.
Oh yeah, Brinker. He's such a complex character.
He is. He's very much a product of his time. He's trying to figure out who he is and what he believes in.
And he's got this overbearing father who's constantly pushing him to be more like him.
Yeah, Mr. Hadley he's very much the old school war hero.
Yeah.
He's proud of his service in World War I, and he wants Brinker to follow in his footsteps.
But Brinker, he's not so sure. He sees the war differently.
And he resents the pressure that his father is putting on him.
Yeah. I mean, can you blame him?
No, not at all. It's a lot to put on a young man.
Especially when he's already dealing with so much.
Right. He's trying to figure out his own identity, his own place in the world.
And then he's got this war hanging over him.
And this father who's pushing him in a direction he's not sure he wants to go in.
It's a lot to handle.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's something that a lot of young men were dealing with at that time, this sense of being caught between two generations, two different ways of looking at the world.
Right. And it's not just Brinker.
Mhm.
It's all the characters in the book. They're all trying to find their place in this changing world.
And that's one of the things that makes A Separate Peace so relevant even today. We're still dealing with these same issues, these
Mhm.
same conflicts.
Oh, absolutely. Even though it was written decades ago, it still speaks to something very fundamental about the human experience.
Yeah.
This idea that war isn't just something that happens on a battlefield. It's something that happens within us as well.
Exactly. It's a war that we fight within ourselves.
And that's something that I think we'll see as we dive deeper into A Separate Peace.
I think so too. It's a book that really makes you think about the nature of war, the nature of peace.
And the nature of ourselves.
Exactly.
So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
So one of the key themes in A Separate Peace is this idea of the enemy within,
Right. The idea that the real enemy is not some foreign power,
Mhm.
but something inside of us.
Our own fears, our own insecurities, our own darkness.
And this theme is really brought to life through the character of Finney.
Oh, Finney, he's such a fascinating character.
He's so full of life.
Yeah.
So optimistic.
And so naive.
Yeah, he's definitely got a certain innocence about him.
But it's not just naivete. It's more than that.
It's a kind of purity.
Yeah. He sees the world in a very, very simple way,
And he refuses to see the bad in people.
which is both beautiful and dangerous.
Right, because the world is not a simple place.
And there are bad people out there.
But Finney, he just doesn't want to believe,
He wants to believe that everyone is good at heart.
and that everything will work out in the end.
And that's what makes him so vulnerable.
Because he's not prepared for the darkness that exists in the world.
And he's certainly not prepared for the darkness that exists within himself.
Right. And that's ultimately what leads to his downfall.
Yeah, it's a real tragedy.
It is. But it's also a very powerful story.
Because it shows us the dangers of denying our own darkness.
And the importance of facing our fears.
So we've got this idyllic setting, we've got this generational divide, and we've got this idea of the enemy within. It seems like there's a lot going on under the surface in a separate piece.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot more to this book than meets the eye.
Well, I, for one, can't wait to dive in and see what else we can uncover.
Me too.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So we were just talking about this idea of the enemy within this concept, that the biggest battles we face are often the ones we fight against ourselves.
Right. It's like we all have these inner demons that we're constantly wrestling with.
And sometimes those demons can be more dangerous than any external enemy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Our own fears, our own insecurities, our own self-doubt. Those things can really hold us back in life.
And in a separate piece, we see that play out in a really powerful way through the characters.
Yeah. Each character is grappling with their own internal struggles, their own unique way of dealing with the pressure and uncertainty of wartime.
And one of the most striking examples of this is Leper Lepellier.
Leper. Yeah. He's such a sensitive, fragile character.
And he really embodies this idea of the enemy within, right? He's not fighting against any external enemy. He's fighting against himself.
It's like he's at war with his own mind, his own perception of reality.
You know, at the beginning of the book, he seems so at peace with himself. He's content to just observe the world around him.
Right. He finds solace in nature,
And
in the beauty of the natural world.
But then as the war intensifies and the pressure to enlist mounts, Leper starts to unravel.
He can't handle the psychological strain.
And it all kind of culminates in that really disturbing scene where he has a breakdown during basic training.
Yeah, that scene it's really hard to read because you see how the war has completely shattered his sense of self.
It's like the war has invaded his mind, and it's tearing him apart from the inside out.
And it's a reminder that trauma can manifest in so many different ways.
Right. It's not always physical.
Right.
It can be emotional. It can be psychological.
And it can have a really profound impact on a person's life.
And another character who really struggles with this idea of the enemy within is Brinker.
Brinker. Yeah, he's a very different character from Leper.
Oh, yeah. He's much more outwardly confident, more assertive.
But underneath that bravado, he's just as insecure, as vulnerable as anyone else.
And his way of dealing with that insecurity is to try to control everything around him.
Right. He's very, very rigid, very controlling.
And he's constantly trying to impose order on the chaos.
Which is ironic because the war is all about chaos.
Exactly. And Brinker's attempts to control the chaos ultimately backfire.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to build a dam to hold back the tide.
But the tide is just too strong.
And eventually the dam breaks.
So both Leper and Brinker, in their own different ways, are battling against these internal enemies.
Right. They're both trying to cope with the pressures of wartime.
But their methods of coping are ultimately destructive.
Yeah, they both end up isolating themselves from the people who care about them.
And they both end up hurting themselves in the process.
And this is where the narrator's journey becomes so important.
Because he also struggles with guilt and fear and anger.
Right. He's not immune to the enemy within.
But he eventually finds a way to overcome those demons.
Yeah, he learns to accept himself, to forgive himself.
And to move forward with his life.
And that's a really powerful message.
It is. Because it shows us that even in the midst of great darkness, there's always hope.
Yeah, there's always the possibility of redemption,
And there's always the possibility of peace.
even if it's just a separate piece.
Hmm. A separate peace.
Yeah, that's what the book is all about.
That's a really great point.
Yeah.
It's not about finding peace in the world, it's about finding peace within ourselves.
Exactly. And that's something that we can all strive for,
No matter what challenges we're faced.
no matter what demons we're fighting.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes a separate piece such a timeless, a universal story.
Because it speaks to something very fundamental about the human experience.
Our need for connection,
Mm.
our need for love, our need for peace.
And our capacity for hope.
Exactly.
Wow, this is really, really resonating with me.
Yeah, me too. It's a powerful book.
So we've talked about Leper, we've talked about Brinker, we've talked about the narrator, but there's one more character I want to talk about.
Okay, who's that?
Finney.
Finney. Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The heart and soul of the separate piece.
He's such a complex and enigmatic character.
He is. He's full of contradictions.
On the one hand, he's so carefree, so spontaneous.
Always up for an adventure.
But on the other hand, he's also very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
Very perceptive.
He sees things that other people miss.
He feels things very, very deeply.
Yeah, he's not afraid to show his emotions.
Which is really refreshing, especially in a wartime setting.
Right, because everyone else is trying to be so tough, so stoic.
But Finney, he's just himself.
And that's what makes him so special.
And so tragic.
Yeah, because his innocence, his purity, it's ultimately what that leads to his downfall.
Right. He's not equipped to deal with the darkness of the world.
Or the darkness within himself.
Hmm. And that's what makes a separate piece such a heartbreaking story.
It is. It's a story about the loss of innocence.
And the fragility of peace.
But it's also a story about hope.
And about the power of friendship.
And the enduring nature of love.
Wow. This is really, really making me think.
Me too. It's a book that stays with you long after you finished reading it.
Well, I'm definitely gonna have to reread it now.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
But there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, absolutely. A separate piece it's a book that you can read and reread and always find something new.
Well, I'm excited to continue this conversation in our next deep dive.
Me too.
So until then, keep thinking about a separate piece and keep exploring those big questions about war, about peace,
Yeah.
about ourselves.
Yeah, those are the questions that really matter.
They are.
And a separate piece gives us a really great framework for thinking about those questions.
It does.
So yeah, keep thinking about it.
I will.
All right.
Okay, well, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This was a really great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
All right.
Okay, well, until next time.
See ya.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap things up here with a separate piece, I keep thinking about this one line.
Oh yeah. Which one?
Wars were not made by generations and their special stupidities, but by something ignorant in the human heart.
Yeah. That's a really powerful line. I mean,
Yeah.
it really gets to the heart of what the book is about.
It does, because on the surface, a separate piece is a story about these boys at this prep school during World War II.
Right. But it's so much more than that.
It is, because it's really exploring this idea
Mhm.
that war isn't just something that happens out there in the world.
Right. It's not just about armies and battles and politics.
It's about something deeper,
Yeah, something inside of us.
something in the human heart.
Exactly. And that's what makes a separate piece so timeless, so universal.
Because it's speaking to this fundamental truth about human nature.
That we all have the capacity for violence, for hatred, for destruction.
And that those impulses, those dark
Yeah.
forces, they're always there, lurking beneath the surface.
Right. And it's up to us to choose whether we're going to give in to them or resist them.
And that's what the characters in a separate piece are struggling with.
Yeah, they're all trying to figure out how to live in a world where war is a very real possibility.
And where the enemy is not always so clear cut.
Right, because sometimes the enemy is ourselves.
So how do we find peace in a world like that?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. And a separate peace doesn't give us any easy answers.
No, but
Yeah.
it does offer us some insights.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it suggests that peace is not something that we can find out there in the world.
Right. It's not something that we can achieve through violence or conquest.
It's something that has to come from within.
It's an internal state.
Exactly. It's a way of being.
And it's something that we have to cultivate.
Right. We have to work at it.
And it's not easy
No, it's not, but it's worth it.
because peace is the only way to truly live.
That's right. And a separate piece reminds us of that.
It does. And I
Yes.
think that's why it's such a powerful and enduring book.
Yeah, it's a book that speaks to the deepest part of who we are.
And it's a book that offers us hope.
Even in the darkest of times.
So if you're looking for a book that will challenge you, that will make you think, that will stay with you long after you finished reading it.
Then I highly recommend A Separate Piece.
I do too. It's a truly remarkable book.
Yeah, it is. It's one of my all-time favorites.
Mine too.
Wow.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep searching for that separate peace within.
Thanks for having me.